Morning, everybody. This is Lindsey. Most of you know that. And so she's going to take over here in just a second. A couple announcements. If it's not on your calendar already, November 2nd, GapCon. We have our 11th this year, so excited about that. Putting that together. Things are already coming together with that, so it'll be at the Encore Hotel again this year, and looking forward to that. This is going to be the last Mastermind here. We have space problems in this building right now. Mark and I are struggling with larger potential space solutions, but in the short term, actually have to convert this room into office space. So we are going to be taking over this room. That doesn't mean it'll be the last Mastermind necessarily. It's just until we find another suitable location and a decision as to whether moving off-site will work or not. This will be the last one. So Lindsey gets to finish us out on this one. So, but we're open to any discussions around that. If you have any ideas, please let us know. It's just, we've got solutions. We've got to push some people out of that side of the firm and over here and make that happen. So appreciate everybody who's come to these over the last 2 years. We're coming up on 2 years of being in the building here this month. So we're excited to be able to do this with you guys a lot. Anything other than that, I don't think I have any announcements. I normally would look at Tyler, but news with Tyler as well. Tyler is now out freelancing. He was working for me full-time. He's now freelancing. I pulled him back into the circle, so if you need any videography, photography, or just generally a nice guy to have coffee with, Tyler is out freelancing again now as well. So, Lindsey, let's take over.
Okay. So you guys are gonna either love or hate me for this, but I know most of you, but I don't know every single one of you, and I know not everybody knows everybody else, so I'm gonna make you introduce yourself, where you're from, and I have an icebreaker question, which is what we love to do at Fierce, so if you've been around us, then you're used to this. So, would you rather go back in time to meet your ancestors or go forward to meet your descendants? And if you wanna tell us why, then that would be cool, but. Shannon, you want to start?
I was the same. Yeah, you're in the front.
I know. So I told her I was going to sit in the front. Shannon Carter. I'm with the Chamber of Commerce Tourism Bureau. Title is the Tourism Marketing Manager person. I would go forward just to see kind of what the future looks like and where things are.
Cool.
I'm Natalie Small. I am Lindsey's business partner at Fierce. Oh, I wanted to pick both. I think I'm leaning more towards forward just because I would be so curious to see where my children go and their children. Like that's really and what careers they choose to take, what the family farm looks like.
The family farm.
Will that be a thing?
Yeah.
It'll be I don't know. But yeah, definitely forward. That's my answer.
I'm Leah Kime. I work at Weaver Leather. I'm the marketing manager up there. And as far as the icebreaker question, I think I too would go forward. I feel like it'd be fun to go into the future to see, future generations and even using that feedback of areas of improvement or what went wrong or what went well, that type of thing. Plus, I'm usually thinking forward versus behind. Yeah.
I'm Jeremy Pope. I am 2 months new at Fierce. So, also where I'm from Worcester. So, I would also go forward, probably just to see what my kids are doing, where that's at, and then to see technology, see where technology's at. So,
They'll be all AI.
just robots for the
You guys think?
I'm Larry Mast. I'm new at Inkscape here. I do the equine marketing. I'm from Mount Eden area, so I'd probably go forward too, just with everything that's going and like you said, the AI and stuff, kind of interested where all that'll land. So that's probably where I go.
Mark Mass, I'm with Inkscape Rent Downstairs, live about 5 miles east of here. And I think I'll be the one to go different. I'll go backwards for couple of reasons. One is I think there's probably a lot of questions I could ask my ancestors that might gain some knowledge and experience from them. And I think if we look forward, I think it'd be scary. I don't want to spend time worrying about what's in front of me.
I'm Chris White. I live in Millersburg, and I own stuff around here. I think I would go forward for the heady reason of trying to figure out if anything really mattered at all long term with what we were doing. So.
Conrad, yeah.
Conrad Miller. I work downstairs in Inkscape as well. I live in Millersburg, grew up in Sugar Creek. I guess I would go forward as well, mainly to see what evolution does with this nose.
Okay. Are your future great-grandchildren little rockers? That would be the question. Okay.
Hopefully not.
I'm Emily Miller. I'm the Inspired Design Co. out of Millersburg. I live in Holmesville, and I think I would go back because I'm very fascinated by how people lived without technology and stuff, and how they just survived, I guess.
My name is Kennedy. I'm Emily's assistant at Inspired Design, and I live in Millersburg. I would probably go forward just out of curiosity and just to see what things are like.
Do you want to go, Tyler?
Oh, sure. My name's Tyler Needing. I own Needing Media, and I would probably go forward as well. So I'm interested to see like what sort of legacy it will leave.
So I'm JD. I work at Leverage Technologies. I'm from Fredericksburg. I was thinking I'd like to go forward because I want the lottery numbers, but actually I'm one that would want to go back. I've got some pretty interesting ancestors, and I would love to meet them and just see.
How far back? You want to go
Great
like?
grandpa. I would like
Okay.
to go back to my great grandfather and meet him. So.
Jordan Mullet, and help run a company called Sandler Training at the Ruby Group, and we help our customers take sales and skyrocket while making it easier and less stressful, and live in Berlin. And I think it's frustrating that I can't ever, with any previous generations, my dad, grandpa, anybody like that, we're never going through the same thing at the same time. So I'd love to be able to go back and have conversations with my grandpa when he was 46 and to know kind of what he was like during that time. Because you only get to know him when he's 70 or 60 or whatever it is. So I would love to be able to go have conversations with previous generations at the same age and see what they were dealing with and what they were like. Because then you can see the outcomes. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, I'm Wayne Hirschberger, also with Inkscape Print downstairs. And I think too, yeah, it's kind of interesting going forward or backward. I would probably go back and kind of see where my other generations were, where we are, and where we're going. It's very interesting on technology. Go back 10 years even, where you were and where you are.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Thank you for. I'll share. So I'm Lindsey, co-owner of Fierce Creative Solutions, and I live in Fredericksburg, and I am really torn on this too. I think I would really like to go back. I would actually like to go back to the point where my family was immigrating here, but on both sides, because I really like to compare my dad's background and my mom's background is really different. So I think it'd be very interesting to see what they're both like and kind of where it connected then, I just think that would be interesting. So, all right, we are gonna jump into this, and what's interesting is most of us are marketers, so we'll just have fun with it. Maybe we can use this as a test for ourselves and or other people for using this. So I do have printouts at the end, so we can go through this. And we wanted to make something interactive, so we'll kind of discuss it a little bit, and we're gonna go through kind of like a marketing quiz, so. All right, so the topic today was, does your marketing suck? And when we collaborated as a team, these are kind of some of the questions that we came up with to analyze whether your marketing actually does suck or not, so. So question number 1 is, do you have a marketing budget? Or do you even have a business budget? Because we sit down with businesses all the time that have, it's all over the place. Like you could be like Chris White and have like the next 5 years planned out in a spreadsheet, and then you just plug in numbers when you want to change something and it all goes like that. Or you could have zero plan and you're just totally gunslinging out there in the wild, wild west. And we have worked with all different scopes of people in those. So we highly recommend creating a marketing budget, and it helps, just kind of guide your marketing efforts. Does anybody here have a marketing budget? I know Chris does. I need you. Okay. Question number 2 is, do you have a marketing plan? So you made the budget, but then like, where do you actually take the money and spend it? That's also really hard, because if you don't have a plan for where you're going to spend it, then you're still gunslinging because you're just making decisions on the fly. And I know as a business owner and just busy people in general, it's really hard to make good sound decisions when you're under pressure. You're running kids, like every day is packed and there's just no time. So setting time aside to really analyze, where am I spending my money? My favorite thing is to do that a year in advance, set the plan and leave it as long as you can without, like, you analyze the results, maybe quarterly. We analyze the results monthly with most of our clients, but we try not to make decisions more about changing things more than quarterly or even semi-annually, depending on what's happening, if we're like working with a seasonal business or something like that. But it makes it really easy to vet the phone calls that you get, because we all get like 1,000 phone calls or emails or ads on social or whatever it is about the next new marketing thing, and you should try this, and everybody calls you to try to get you to sign up for something. So if you already have a plan in place, then you can use it like a science experiment, kind of run it, test it, see what works, what doesn't work. And if you're like getting halfway through the year and you're not going to hit your goals, then it's time to pivot. But giving the plan the time to actually work is also very helpful. Does anybody have a marketing plan? We got it. Okay. See, you guys are marketing pros. We're good. Question number 3 is, do you know your target demographic? So you could know a little bit. You could have kind of a fuzzy idea about who your target customer is, what's working well, but digging into all of your marketing channels to see who your audience is. Leah, would you mind sharing any of that? Because I feel like Weaver does this really well. Like, can you give us any insight to what you guys do to define your audience?
Yeah, for sure. We have about 10 different brands and serve about 6 different markets. So each one of those is going to be a little bit different. Some of them we do a better job of actually like defining that, writing it down, putting pen to paper. So one of the areas we've done that is our supply division, where we actually put brand standards in place. And in those brand standards, we define that we have 2 demographics that we're targeting. One of them is like a 40 to 60-year-old male who might have more of a Western style in their projects. We define some of the other brands that they might interact with. They might be on Facebook. They might be interacting with like, Budweiser, some of your more like traditional brands. They're more traditional in style. What are their spending habits? Are they more cautious? Are they quick to make a decision? Kind of just defining a little bit about them, knowing what their interests are and knowing who that target is. And then having a secondary target where, kind of getting into a lot of detail here, but having a secondary target, just knowing who you're talking to helps you define your message. Like when you're putting content out there, when you're talking to those different groups, it just helps you curate a message that's going to land there. Obviously, if you're talking to me or you're talking to somebody else in this room, you're going to talk to them differently, potentially based on their interests and, what stage of life that they're at. And, are they in a busy stage where they have a lot of kids, or are they a little bit older? Do they have, some extra income to spend, you know, you're gonna look at those different things about your customer and you're gonna talk to them differently based on that. So we just spent some time putting pen to paper on who are those different targets. So when we put something out there and we're talking to that group, we can ask the question, is this going to resonate? Is this going to be successful based on who's receiving this content? So it's not necessarily just personal preference of the content I'm putting out there, but it's focused and targeted towards those different demographics that have been defined and kind of put pen to paper on who those demographics are.
Thank you.
Is that kind of what you're looking for? Or?
Sure. Does anybody else have anything that they'd want to jump in on defining their demographic? No. Chris,
I nerd out on that stuff.
you like digging into the data?
Yeah, we're defining, building viable client profiles, trying to narrow the target as much as possible. That way, if you're missing it, you know you're missing it, instead of having very broad based.
So do you guys do that per line of service?
Yeah, per attorney, you know, in the firm, everyone has a defined, since there's 40 different areas of practice, it's a little hard to just hit it all. Which you can actually fool yourself into thinking you're hitting it when you have such a broad target and you think it's just that big one target versus having a whole bunch of small ones that you're supposed to try and hit.
So how often do you guys analyze that?
About every 6 months.
Okay. And then how does that practically apply to where you put your messaging? Do you know?
Oh, I mean, we pull from places where we don't see results and then try something different. Sometimes it's just experimentation because we don't know exactly what's going to land until we do. And then it's like, yes, double down on that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for making this interactive. Okay, so question number 4 is about marketing channels. So you're building the plan, so you're trying to decide where to put the money and where you're going to allocate all of your resources. So I'm actually going to give this to you guys so you can score yourselves at the end if you want, or share it with somebody else if you want. So here are the channels that we identified. So let's go through these. Raise your hand if you got a Facebook page. I'll be shocked if you don't.
If you don't.
Okay, so Instagram. Who's on Instagram? Okay. Who's on TikTok? I like less hands when we get to TikTok.
Are you asking if we have our businesses?
Businesses. But you, I mean, Jordan, you market on your personal channels too, don't you? Like
I
on
do LinkedIn. And then,
you're on LinkedIn.
And then the business does Facebook.
So you're not on Instagram?
No.
You're not on TikTok?
No.
Maybe you should analyze that one. I think you're gold for TikTok, so if you want to talk about that.
Great.
Yeah. Are you even on TikTok yourself?
As a consumer.
Okay. Who actually has TikTok for themselves personally? Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's like changed, I mean, love it or hate it, it has changed the way that social media is going, and whatever happens, whether it stays or not, the way that video has been produced on TikTok is driving the way it's affected the way Instagram and Facebook have done things. It's actually affected the way LinkedIn is working, Jordan, because LinkedIn actually wants your TikTok videos. Oh. So like in our research, they want those types of videos, and I think that we're going to start seeing it go that way more over the next year. So
Pinterest is doing the same.
And Pinterest is doing the same. And honestly, YouTube Shorts are really the same thing. Like my kids are not on social media, but they have YouTube and they watch YouTube Shorts all the time. And then I'm like, how do you even know this trend? Oh, it's because it's on YouTube. So
somebody usually has a form of it. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. They all have, like, it all starts at TikTok and flows out to everything else.
Right. Well, and the trends that happen on TikTok then dictate trends on the other platforms too. So honestly, I think since we started the business 2 years ago, we've seen the biggest change in social media in that 2 years that I probably saw in the previous, like maybe 4 or 5 years. It's been because we've had privacy changes, we've had targeting changes for at running ads, the platforms are changing, videos, you throw that in the mix. And so it is a lot to kind of just keep track of, but important because you can actually pinpoint your demographic even more. You can create these small communities of followers and really, lock them in, make them loyal to you. So for businesses, I feel like it's really important. It's something that we talk to our clients about a lot. A Google My Business profile. Jordan, do you have one of those?
Yeah.
For Sandler, I don't know. Where's your actual home? Fairlawn, okay. So you can post to Google My Business the same way that you can post to other social channels. Not everybody does that. So a lot of people do have the Google My Business profile, but they're not like really optimizing the usage of it. And Google loves Google, so utilize their own channels if you want to show up there. And it's also great for reviews, and reviews are hugely impactful to your business and the way that you show up online, reputation and things like that. So email marketing. Does everybody participate in email marketing? Okay. SEO is search engine optimization. So that is strategically working on your website to see where you rank compared to your competitors online and granularly. So compared to like for Law Division, like where do you guys rank? Maybe you don't want to rank in Holmes County. Maybe you want to rank in Stark County or Tusk County or Wayne County because people here, oops, I'm going to knock the TV off the wall. Because people here know who you are, but you want to grow your brand presence in other ways or see where you rank compared to competitors. Do you guys do that? Okay. All right. Referral marketing would be like being part of networking groups, referral groups, the chamber. Everybody join the chamber?
I like that club.
There you go. You didn't even know. YouTube, so that would be both with regular YouTube videos, but also with YouTube Shorts. Print advertising, this is where Mark's team comes into play. So that could be postcards, all kinds of different print materials that you can put out there. Television/streaming. I'm curious to see who in here has tested that. I know you have. Anybody else? I know you have too. I don't know if you tested it long enough. We can talk about that later. So we love streaming television as an option for our clients because a lot, like, you know, we're in Holmes County. So if you're targeting people around here, it was never like, it never made sense to go on broadcast TV because you don't need all of the Cleveland market. I mean, it would have made sense maybe for Amish country in general because we're drawing in that audience. But if you're trying to work and do business in this area, if Fierce is trying to attract business clients, we don't need to go on Channel 3 and pay the super high premium. Now with streaming, you can hyper target within zip codes and demographic and layer in all of your targeting so that you can say you want a 40 to 60-year-old male in Canton who's interested in home improvement, and we can serve the ad to them on the channels that they are watching. Yeah.
So if I'm running advertising for Park Street Pizza in Sugar Creek, I could go 5 miles from my location and target households that have kids.
Absolutely. You can do household, it depends on the vendor that you work with. There's all different kinds of vendors that are out there as far as when it comes to streaming television. So we have one that we work with that I feel pretty confident in. And I've worked with a couple in my last 10 years of marketing. So there are quality issues when it comes to streaming, and there's fraud issues when it comes to streaming. So you have to be very careful. You can't list, like, somebody could come to you with like a really good streaming option and it's going to sound too good to be true. It is too good to be true. So that's something to be careful of. And if you get, like, if you are talking to somebody and you want to run it past us and say, hey, can you double check, does this sound like it's right? Feel free to reach out to me or Natalie and we can talk to you about that. But yeah, so you can, there's all different layers of targeting that you put in there. There's recommendations on, you don't want to go too granular because you can actually weed out your audience. But it's really cool afterwards is you can see completion rates. So you can see how many people actually completed the video, your click-through rates, because they could be watching that. Like, I watch YouTube TV on my phone every single morning and I get ads from that. So if I click that ad, then that's trackable. Obviously, if they're watching on TV, then they're not going to click from there. But we also have, with our partner, we can remarket to anybody who saw your ad. So within 24 to 48 hours, they can actually get an ad on a different platform to follow up with that ad, which is, we've seen that be super effective with growing brand. The biggest thing that does, it will generate leads and it will generate business, but it helps grow your brand. You need people to know who you are before they need your service. And so, everybody wants the quick result, they want the sale, they want the money, they want all of that right now, but some of marketing requires patience and investment in the long run. So that's where we see TV come into play. It can help drive business right now, but really you're building that brand equity for the long run. So people know who you are before they actually need you. Okay, pay-per-click advertising would be like running Google ads, running Facebook, Meta ads, goes across Instagram, all of those different types of channels. And all of the different options available inside those products, even outside those platforms. But do you guys have very much experience with that? Anybody here? I know you guys have run. Why are you looking like that?
He's like, yeah.
He's like, yeah, we do that, I guess.
I'm sorry, I zoned out. I'm picking contacts for you to introduce you to.
Oh, great.
What was the question? That justifies me zoning out.
Okay, great. Pay-per-click advertising, so running Google ads. This is
Justifies me saying I'm using that.
Yeah, you're gonna say that from now on.
Every meeting.
I was stuck on that last question, was so great.
Still remember, like,
You're allowed to zone out if it brings me clients,
I have
so.
conversations like this all the time with my business clients, like, that I need viable sources to introduce them to. And what I'm recognizing is that you're probably unique in our area when it comes to marketing. We have a decent amount of marketing firms on it.
Yeah.
But that your experience in the social media side of it is completely different than most.
I definitely think that's what we've seen from working with businesses in the area. I think it helps that we were in-house marketing people for a really long time before we left, and we got to both experience what it's like to work with outside vendors. So number one, we know what we don't want. We know what business owners don't want us to act like. And then also, like, we're pretty strategic. So yeah, so we have outside options. So if you have a business who has an in-house marketer who runs their social, but they really need help with figuring out where do I put the rest of my money and how do I figure out this target, like, we try to meet a business where they're at and really customize like what we're able to offer. Because we want to be a partner, like we want to play well with others. I always felt like I had people come in and they wanted to take over my job whenever in previous roles, and that's like not setting up a good success or a good partnership in the future. So. Did you have a follow-up thought? You looked like you did.
No, it's interesting you said in-house, but really that's where you cut your teeth was actually in homes. Like in-home marketing, not in-house, which is very valuable. So a lot of my clients deal with that.
Okay, so then more marketing channels would be events and sponsorships. This one's actually a little bit difficult too when we are breaking it down with clients, because sponsoring little league teams is not always going to bring you business, but can bring you good brand recognition and goodwill. So even working with clients to set aside a separate budget, but also make that realistic with, okay, what percentage of the overall budget is this? And then when we step back and analyze the whole budget, so what percentage of your budget is actually towards lead generation, towards branding, towards just PR and kind of like goodwill? And sometimes that will be necessary to push them past the dollar they're willing to really actually spend when they first sit down and talk. Because like even with building a website, if we were going to build a website for a client, you can't take that out of your whole 2023 marketing budget, because it's going to take maybe a bigger portion than it should, and really that's an investment over time. So you need to look at it like depreciation with accounting. I'm going to take this as a cost over the next 3 to 4 years or 5 years, whatever you hope your website will last for. Although we can't predict technology, so websites don't last as long as we want them to. So 5 years. We're all crossing our fingers for 5 years, but it used to be like people thought 10 years was a good idea. So if your website still looks like it was made in the 2000s, please talk to us. Okay, and then we have.
Can I ask a question there?
Yep.
Basic budget, we're talking to a business owner on ramping up or changing their website. I have no idea what costs are today. Like that could be anywhere from 5,000 at the low end to 50,000, or is it?
Did you say 15 or 50?
50. Like, and it's more like it's not I have no idea. Like talk a home builder, for instance.
So we definitely talk about like what the goal of the business is when we are talking about, and we typically give them 3 options. So we have worked with like in the home industry, because we are in a service-based area and we work with a lot of service-based businesses. We've had, like we worked with a plumber who was brand new and he just wanted a website. So basically he had a link for his Google My Business, and so people could check him out if they needed to, but he's really subbing for a lot of other people, so he didn't need a lot of business. But he wanted to know what the long run was. So we sit down and we say, okay, for this, like this is where we try to meet people too, because websites are expensive, especially for startups. So we're like, okay, here's our solution for right now, but when you want to grow, then you need this, this, and this. So we'll sit down and give them like 3 different options and talk about the reasons why they need that. So really, I would say like your price range is pretty close. We have done websites a little less expensive than that, but they're not getting as much creative control. You know, there's a cost that you got to give up if you want something less expensive. There's a, you know, trade-in value there. So we really try to understand because a website only works as well as you're driving traffic to it, but a lot of service-based businesses, lead generation is huge. Like they need people going to it. And so in order to do that, design doesn't bring people in, but design will drive people away. So if you don't have a website that's laid out well, that's easily navigatable, that says what they need in order to convert, then your website's actually going to work against you. Okay. And then, okay, so we were talking about, Jordan keeps taking me back to the next last one. All right, radio. In my experience, radio is actually one of the hardest lead sources to track. Everybody who does radio is like, I never got anything from the radio. Okay, but I have first-hand experience with people calling me and saying, hey, I heard about, or I saw you guys on TV, and I was never on TV, but I was on radio in their market. So I have talked to a lot of different radio vendors about that, and they've done research. People visualize what they're hearing, so they're visualizing your brand. And so it does work, but think about what is happening whenever you're driving around. You're not like, it's kind of almost like subconscious, like you're brainwashing the people listening to you. And again, help support that brand recognition. So if somebody's looking for a commercial roof in Canton, they heard a radio, but then they don't need one for 3 months, but when they actually go to Google it and you have an ad at the top and you show up organically, then they're like, oh yeah, I know who they are. I want to click on that. That's who I want. So it's still something that we utilize a lot, and we just really have to work through with businesses on measuring the ROI and really, looking at how that's a support. I would say the same thing is very similar with billboards. You can use tracking numbers too, and the same with yard signs. Actually, yard signs, I actually see a lot. People typically say, I saw a yard sign, especially if it's in their neighbor's area, because they don't want the neighbor to have a better roof than them. So they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna call them too. But there's technology that would allow you to utilize tracking numbers for all these different sources. I've had all different kinds of business conversations where they don't want to give up their phone number. Well, nobody knows phone numbers anymore. I mean, think about, seriously, I don't even know if I can tell you my kids' phone numbers. Like, I don't have them memorized. That's actually a really big problem. So to expect that a business, is going to even care if it's local, like Millersburg versus Worcester used to be a thing. That's not even a thing anymore because everybody's clicking a button to call. So if a business owner is concerned about ROI for different types of things, then what we would recommend is actually using a service that measures those, and you can have those numbers forever. You have to pay for it, but it's not crazy expensive. So it's a good option to kind of measure those things. Okay. So 15 points if you post daily on social media. 10 points for weekly, 5 points for monthly, and if you post less than that, then you get 0. Really, 5 points for monthly is like, I'm barely hanging on. So like, it's enough to look like you're not out of business, because nothing's worse than going to a business Facebook or Instagram page and they haven't posted for a year and you're like, what are they doing? Are they even still alive? Most of the time they are, they're just surviving.
I have a question for you on that one.
Yep.
So mine is not obviously a traditional business, we're a DMO. If I'm posting on the daily, we actually found that our reach started to shrink because we almost become spammy as a destination. So we had to trick the algorithms for social media where we're posting every other day, but it's not based actually on the days, it's based on the hours, so that we're still filtering in the algorithms. Have you had any issues with any other businesses?
Do you use a posting tool
No.
that tells you what hours to post?
I have done the algorithm side and looked at our frequent traction and all of that. I have all the data. But when we came HubSuite or HubSpot, whatever it is, Hootsuite, all of those we were finding were posting what they felt was the correct time, and it actually was shrinking the reach. So we actually went in and we created them organically and have them set with timers that we post in live time.
Oh.
And we found that that gets traction for our brand because it's such a broad thing that it seems to work organically better.
So how much video do you have mixed in?
It's usually two. Taylor and I are switching. So Taylor is kind of taking over that in the office
social.
on the daily, but I'm still keeping the bigger end of social and all the data and the research part. So she's creating more reels right now. So we're up to, I would say 10 in a month, reels and videos.
Like 2 a week almost.
Yeah, to kind of filter that in and change it out a little bit. Obviously in the winter we're quiet because Amish country is quiet. So
we've not seen people driving away from posting too often.
Okay.
But so the scheduling tool that we use is called Metricool, and it does.
Yes. Okay.
So it's pretty affordable. And I feel like they have more accurate like timing. So they actually won't even give you recommended times until they've seen enough data on what's working for you and what's not. I would say also mixing up the content type, and yes, so.
And topic for sure.
And what is happening with social media is hashtags are still really important, but a copy of social media is turning into SEO.
Yeah.
So understanding SEO for your website used to be something that nobody understands, but it's even more important now with your social. And this is something that we've been pivoting with our team in, is that if you're posting about a vinyl siding company and you're targeting these different areas, it's really important to use those keywords, and you can't just be like, here, look at this pretty house.
Right.
Emoji drop and you're out. And it used to be able to be that simple and you would target people through your hashtags, but it's actually a little bit more complicated than that. So figuring out how to structure your SEO the right way.
That's the switch we've seen. And for it being Ohio Amish country, I have to be very specific with the SEO and still including all of the tourism in the area.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know if you were noticing any trends on the smaller
Are you
side.
seeing that on all of the platforms or just mostly Facebook?
All of them.
That is
So,
interesting.
and I'm noticing it in the DMO market more than anywhere. So I didn't know if it was a trend that it's just a travel and hospitality trend that we're seeing, because those are kind of different than traditional businesses, or if it's this switchover phase. So
It's just like a decrease in engagement, right?
yeah, it almost takes the funnel that you have on your normal reach and shrinks it if you start posting. Like if I post it every day, it takes it and it shrinks my 2 million down to 3. It just almost funnels it down based on.
That's strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've noticed it over the course of the last 4 months. So it's.
If you want us to help analyze it with you, I'd be
I
really
was gonna
curious.
say, we could definitely do that at some point.
Yeah.
Because it's confusing.
Yeah.
How it just automatically switched.
I mean, the platforms are changing, and
Right.
unfortunately.
Well, I mean, just because
That's
on the DMO side, you know what I mean? Like the individual businesses aren't seeing it. It just seems weird that I'm seeing it.
Well, I wonder if there's a strategy shift to change that too. What is the post type priority? And I wonder if this has actually changed. So
It's
reel,
probably changed.
carousel, image, but stories were actually higher than I think it goes like video, stories, carousel, static image posts, and
And that
priority.
changes on Facebook and Instagram. I know that.
Well, and I've seen a lot of success or a lot of influencers recommending actually just taking your TikTok video, taking the watermark off and posting it directly to Facebook. Just skipping and they've seen a lot of success with with that type of video content on Facebook to build a following. So it's so fun. We actually have tried to assign platforms to everybody inside our team because there's so much changing all the time that we're trying to stay up on it. That way we have people who are specifically experts in what's happening. So
important.
Yes. Okay, so how often do you analyze your website traffic? Who loves Google Analytics? I don't, but I do look at it. I'm really upset with Google. Who's ready for the new Google Analytics coming out in July? I'm not either. no, we're ready for it, but just, it's been very interesting to see Google Analytics is changing. You have to have everything switched over by July 1st. And the way that the new one measures traffic actually requires a lot more customization of setting up what you want to track and the types of things that it's able to measure. So it's not as simple as just throwing the code on your website and it's going to measure it and you can try to pull from that the best that you can. It's different than that now. So having somebody help you do that is probably important, because we know all things marketing, but like when it comes to code and like my brain shuts down and I'm like calling somebody to help me. So that's why we have Darius on our team. But when looking at your website traffic, what's important to look at is your users, your sessions, your bounce rate, what channels are they coming to your website from. That way you can see what's working, what's not working. And so when I asked the team, I look at like our website traffic weekly. Darius said he would recommend minimum bi-weekly to be able to look at what's happening. But based on the experience of talking to business owners, they really don't look at it that much. And often, even if they have like a web management company who's helping them, they'll send them a report automatically every month and they don't even know what it's about. They have no idea. So this is where we really try to meet a business owner where they're at least have a conversation about, hey, this is what we see, this is what's happening, help them determine what's important to look at and what, like what factors to look at. Okay, and how do you measure the success of your marketing? So 10 points for each one of these. So if you have internal lead or sales source tracking, so it's super important. A lot of, like, it's really fun to work with a business owner who's like, my marketing's not working. And I'm like, okay, but are you tracking it? Do you have any way to concretely say, because I can show you what conversions are through your ads, impressions, clicks, all of those types of things that are happening. Sales and marketing are always held in tension with each other. Sometimes it's really tense. Sometimes it works really good. So review performance of marketing channels. So that's where we would go into Google Ads, we go into Facebook, we go into all of the different places and see what's working, what's not working, what should we be expecting, especially like for the budget that's set, what's realistic. So we work with our customers on a cost per lead or cost per sale or whatever it is, a goal for that. And we set goals with our clients quarterly. So we can say, okay, this is where we're at, this is where we want to be, and then we take those steps for the quarter to work towards that. And I mean, sometimes it's not going to work, and sometimes that is out of our control, because your neighbor next door could decide to go bid the heck out of Google and drive the cost of things up. So having somebody help analyze what's happening inside the market so that you can see what's working, what's not working, why is this not working, it helps make those decisions a lot easier too. When to change, how do we do this? Last fall, I actually we do work with a siding contractor here locally. And the fall typically is very expensive for home services, because everybody's like, waits till the fall to get their job done, but also all the contractors want to be booked out until December. And so then they all decide to bid each other up. And so right before Labor Day, it was getting very expensive, but he was booked out far enough. And I was like, okay, so your choice is, in order to perform well, we have to increase the budget, or you can pause it. Like, I don't want you, where you're at now, you're bleeding money, and I don't want to see that happen. I think this is where we are also kind of different as a partner. Like, that reduced what we were doing for him, or we shifted basically to a different thing. But I don't want to bleed money as a business owner, so I would never recommend that to somebody else. So we either need to go to the place where we're going to get the performance, or we're going to pause it totally, or make recommendations around the way to shift there. And then the last thing would be analyzing sales goals compared to marketing results. So are you actually looking at, like, you can look at marketing results, but are your sales goals on track? And if they're not on track, then what do we need to do to support that to get where you need to be? Because ultimately it comes down to businesses need to make money. Marketing is a support to that. So if you're not headed in the right direction, then we need to have some checkpoints to see if that's happening. So, all right, so to score, which I'll hand this out to you guys, if you're between 108 and 120, you're doing great. 84 to 108, you're probably doing okay. Maybe need some help. If you're below 84, you definitely need to call us. So just go ahead and send all those people to us. Is there any final thoughts or questions anybody has? Jeremy, I expect you to fill that out very thoroughly.
Is this I can ask you anything here?
Yeah.
So,
It's an open door, Jordan.
back 4 slides ago.
I figured you might go off script. Let's just not.
When a customer or like a client, let's say they spend 50 grand on their website, you know, maybe even 75, like they're going out of the water, they're spending a lot of money, it does a lot of things. And then each lead to them is worth, I don't know, 100 grand. Like, what does marketing budget look like then for them? And 100 grand, and they're $5 million business, I don't know how many leads that is.
Those numbers don't make sense. A $5 million business is probably more like a $10 or $15 or $20,000 project, right?
Let's do that.
Okay.
So, like, then when we're comparing and you're looking at what they spend website-wise to what they should be spending yearly, you know, like, is there a ratio there of based on how fast they want leads to come in?
Okay, so in our experience, this is like without knowing things, I don't think it's necessary to spend $50,000 on a website unless you have a super complicated e-commerce website with a lot of products.
Okay.
That's
maybe
the best situation. In a service-based industry, depending on how crazy it is, like I would say, like if you have a bigger company, let's say 5 to 15 million, maybe 20, depending in annual revenue, they might be spending 15 to 30 for a pretty decent website in that range. So, and then smaller contractors would be less than that. It would kind of be proportionate. I have never run a calculation of what a website is worth compared to their business value because we are always making the business quote specific to what the business needs are. But we do run multiple different calculations on marketing budget in general based off of like running through, well, first of all, what's your revenue goal and just taking a percentage of that, looking at what's industry average, so like what's normal for a siding contractor versus a shed builder versus, you know, a florist. They're all different types of budgets there. And then also, but then bringing that back to what's your average job cost and how much does it cost to, you know, what's your closing rate, what's your sales goal, because sometimes the percentage doesn't actually equal the goals. I cannot tell you how many times I've sat with business owners who are like, well, our revenue goal is this. They let their salespeople set their own goals, and their sales goal doesn't even match that goal. And then when they actually look at their average like job size and all of that, then none of those things make sense. So really sitting and digging into those numbers and creating some clarity for them helps bring it. Oh, they're like, oh, this doesn't make sense.
And you know how unique you are as a marketer that you know that stuff, right? You understand that? Like, that's not normal.
That's why I do it for email. That's why I do it for email.
It's interesting. So, like, I don't know, what are average marketing spends per year then?
I would say like the most average number is 5%.
5%
of revenue. And revenue, what you want it to be, not what you think it should be. But I have clients from 1% to 10%, depending on how aggressive they are. And honestly, our most aggressive client has seen the greatest amount of growth. Like it's been, they're our best performing. They really just jumped in, trusted us. They had very aggressive growth goals. In order to do that, you can't not spend money. Like that's just what it comes down to. So they have left out, they're doing streaming television, they're doing a bunch of things that they never would have done if they hadn't partnered with us. But being able to see like a full-fledged, here's a really good plan. Everybody just wants to do what they can track. They're not just running Google Ads. They're doing Google Ads, but we're doing other things too to help support that. So
5% of 10 million. I'm not good at numbers, but you're saying that's, what is it?
500,000.
500,000. That's the number.
That's 5%. That's 5%.
10 million.
That's 5% of 10 million.
It's $500,000. So you're.
it depends on how well established a business is too, I would say, and how aggressive they are. So we've
what
seen
they're
very,
trying to
like in
have.
the same thing, a $10 million revenue, but maybe their growth isn't as aggressive, their growth goal isn't as aggressive. Potentially you could see a 3% or even lower like marketing budget work really well. It just depends on how long they've been in the business, how much brand equity they already have, because that helps. But what we have seen work is like you gain momentum from building a marketing train basically. So you're putting all the coal, you got to get it going. It takes a lot of effort up front, but once you get it going, as long as you keep it going, then you can actually get more momentum from the same, like you don't have to keep increasing the spend at the same rate. You can pivot and adjust and add this, and then little things can help take you to the next level. But that upfront cost and effort is often underestimated.
Yeah.
So.
Fair.
What would you tell somebody who's looking to rebrand?
To rebrand.
How would you, so for example, I have changed in 3 years the story that we tell for Amish Country. That shift took 3 years. Getting my boards to understand that the marketing needed to shift and change over 3 years. How would you tell a business who's looking to maybe refresh, rebrand that same trajectory?
Our advice to businesses who want to rebrand is storytelling is the best way to do that. So that's where you get out the video. That's where you talk about it as much as possible. And we're working with a landscape designer right now. They were doing a rebrand. So you can do transition things, but the reasons why they want to do it is a really, really cool story. So being able to talk about that. Chris, are you guys still feeling the effects of rebranding? How long has it been? I feel like the first year we kept.
It's been 2 years.
It takes about 3 years until you
Yeah, no, because we co-branded, there was never a dip. So since we co-branded Equus powered by Whitewall Office, we saw nothing change.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of faded out the powered by Whitewall Office over the last 2 years. And
I was very thankful that I could just stop saying Equus by Whitewall Office because it was very long mouthful for the first year. But that would be a good way to, I mean, if we are helping a company rebrand, we don't want them to totally lose their identity. There needs to be some recognition there, some type of element retained.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did everybody see the new Walnut Creek logo?
Mm-hmm.
So it's...
It was not what I expected.
It wasn't what I expected either. Based off of talking to Matt, I didn't know if it might be more modern or whatever, but they retained some of what they are, but they almost created more clarity because it's simple, right? Like, so now we know their colors are green, white, and black.
Yeah.
Like it's just really there, and they can create a lot of brand consistency with that. But the general idea of what was there is still there. So it's just freshened up a bit.
Well, and I've just noticed that change in the area, like people are terrified for a rebrand, and I wanted to make sure you guys had something.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean,
Is it scary?
modernizing, I think it drives us a little bit crazy right now seeing all the home improvement contractors with the same house that some fiber graphics designer pulled from Adobe, and you're like, okay, you guys all look the same house, the same windows up there, and I'm like, wait a minute, which one is that? Like that has horribly depleted like the recognition of an individualized company. So we don't recommend doing that. Okay, thank you for participating with me this morning.
This was great.
Good job, Lindsey.
Thank you.